Alright, everyone, welcome to our top 5 games of the year for 2020.
It was quite a year, and honestly, for video games, it was pretty good. Other things, other factors, yeah, not so much. But we did have a lot of fun with quite a few games, and we kind of wanted to have our top list of like the top 5 games, and I guess we do have an honorable mention just because, 5 games wasn't enough.
Yeah, we originally were going to plan to do 10, but that was difficult, and on top of that, too much work.
Yeah, way too much work. Honestly, just recording right now is a lot of work.
Yeah, well, because we're noobs at it. And we started this at the end of the year, and of course, some of the games we played that are on this list was released as early as like January.
Yeah. All right, so I'm going to start with my honorable mention. Personally, was Persona 5 Royal, and the reason why it wasn't one of my top 5 games, it was one of my most enjoyable games for the year, but I was a huge fan of the original game, and while there was a good 20-30 hours maybe worth of additional content, a lot of quality of life changes that really made the game more accessible and just a little more enjoyable. I think because it really was just additional content, I didn't kind of want to make my list all new games for the year. That said, there was plenty of new additions that really made the game a little more bearable, seeing as I beat the original twice. I love that game that much. I love that series in general. And especially if you haven't played the original, it is definitely worth a buy. Definitely one of my favorite games for the year. My number 5 top game was Animal Crossing New Horizons. I always think of, remember that summer when Pokemon Go came out? How peaceful. That was like the most peaceful, most fun times outside as adults.
A bunch of people just running around,
right?
Each other.
That was the best time. And sure, this is mid-pandemic. This has the exact opposite energy of the Pokemon Go summer. But I do recall when it came out, there was a bunch of people that picked up, a Nintendo Switch. People that weren't really as big on gaming, and we still had a way to connect. We also had our ways to express ourselves. We have our own islands, our own villagers. You can decorate your own houses and how everything looks on your island. Plenty of content, and they are steadily increasing what they add to the game compared to when it first came out. They added the art gallery, they added new seasonal updates, and they have the holidays, of course. And there's still more content to come. So definitely one of my favorite entries in the series, as well as top 5. Number 5 in my top 5. Number 4 in my top 5 games would be the Final Fantasy VII Remake. I personally love the original game, and seeing it reimagined, with the graphical updates and I really enjoyed the additions to the story. It's not a complete, same storytelling. I know it was a little controversial for some people compared to, it's not faithful to what the original game was. But I'm really excited to see where they take it. I think it makes it a little easier for me to re-experience that same story if there's more additions to it. And there's looking like there's going to be plenty of twists and turns that we haven't experienced yet. Gameplay wise especially, I am not as big on turn-based RPGs as I used to be, and I think the new combat system fits it very well, and especially being able to switch characters on the fly, very rewarding, and definitely a good fantastic entry, and I'm excited to see where it goes from here. Number 3 is Paradise Killer. This game, I saw a random advertisement for it, and I was just intrigued. It's an indie title, and it was just for the PC and Switch. it is more of a visual novel game mixed in with 3D exploration. I don't want to give too much details about the story, but there's been a mass murder and you're an investigator, and you have to prove the innocence of the accused, who clearly didn't do it, but I mean, you can do whatever you want. It is a mix of meeting characters around the island, exploring, you find clues, and there's plenty of things to do in this island exploration wise, a lot of things that you could either miss. One of my favorite aspects is that it isn't a clear-cut way of finishing the game. You can start this trial at any point, and as long as you have evidence, then you can pretty much start right away. I don't want to give too much about the story, but the music, the world building, all of the personalities of each characters, it is a very fun experience. I really enjoy it. I do love visual novels, and that was a great entry in that genre. My second game in my top 5 list would be Ghost of Tsushima. Right away when I saw footage of this game, what caught my eye was, first off, very beautiful. I know they have that black and white mode, which, you know, very faithful to old samurai movies, but first playthrough at least you have to experience it full color because it is a gorgeous game, plenty of vibrant colors. And I also love open world games, and instead of, you know, the usual mini map or waypoint sort of thing, you just go into the map in the menu and you're guided by the wind. And there's just a lot of, I guess, good storytelling elements. You know, it's very appropriate for its time period, and I do like the kind of mix between the way of the samurai as well as, you know, the way of, I guess, an assassin. The character often goes through that moral dilemma of, you know, he's raised as a samurai, but in order for him to achieve his goals, he has to abandon that, or at least not fully abide by it. It honestly would have been my top game of the year, especially considering, you know, that was earlier on, but my top game for the year has to be Hades. That I know it was in development, you know, people were able to experience it before they had the full release, but Hades, right at the end of the year, had to just swipe up that top game for me. I love pretty much everything about this game. I invested at least 100 hours into it in the first month. I love the setting, the voice acting, the storytelling, and I know this is a kind of a niche genre for a lot of people. Some people find, you know, roguelike games to be very frustrating, and although I never used it myself, I do like how they have the God mode, so you can experience the story that they're trying to tell without making it too frustrating for people that may not be into the series, or the genre rather. Procedurally generated rooms, so nothing is the same. I personally love Greek mythology, so it is fantastic to see all of these characters, and they're so well written, and it is very addicting. Honestly, there were days where I just picked up the game and I was like, okay, I'm gonna do one single attempt, and it turned into like 4 or 5 for the night. It's very addicting and definitely worth the top game for my 2020.
Okay, so Sean here, and my honorable mention for 2020 would be Nioh 2. When I first played Nioh, I was very impressed. I was getting into the Soulsborne type of games at that time, and I was a late adapter to that one. So when Nioh 2 came out, I did buy it on launch, and I don't regret it. I had a lot of fun. It was challenging, but also with the magic, it didn't make it as challenging as, say, Dark Souls were. And I did get Steve to play some co-op with me.
Yeah.
Where I was probably like halfway done with the game when he started, and I like basically power leveled him.
So I was like, man, this game is easy.
Yeah,
what are you talking about?
As he stood in the corner while I was like decimating the bosses.
I got a hit here and there,
But Nioh 2 was definitely a great game. If you're into like Soulsborne, those type of action RPGs, you would probably find Nioh 2 a good game to try. Now, the only reason why I didn't make it in my top 5 is because, for my 5th game, my top 5 would be Resident Evil 3. And this was a little bit difficult because I will say that Resident Evil 3 was ultimately a little disappointing for me, especially after Resident Evil 2. But I just had so much fun with it. Resident Evil is just one of my favorite franchises there, and when they remade 3, I enjoyed it. I didn't enjoy them cutting content because the original was, in my opinion, story-wise better. But I was just coming back and playing the game. I completed it. I was disappointed, but I still kept playing the game.
I was disappointed, but not as disappointed to stop playing it altogether.
No, and I think that says a lot about the game in itself. The fact that even though I was disappointed, I still came back and I played the game. I told Steve, I'm not going to do all this optional stuff. And then within
right away,
a couple of days,
he saw the credits and he's like, all right, I'm going to do this optional stuff.
Yeah, I went back and I played it. And even when I completed everything, got all the achievements, I was still playing the game. I still went in and I was like, doing these self-implemented challenges. So that's why it took my 5th spot of my top 5 versus Nioh. Number 4, my game would be Immortals Fenyx Rising. Now this game was quite a bit of a surprise. I think it's under the radar for a lot of people. Made by a lot of people who made Assassin's Creed Odyssey. So it takes place in the world of Greek mythology. And I love almost everything about the game. The art style, it's absolutely a beautiful game. Immortals is shamelessly inspired by Breath of the Wild, which is my favorite Zelda game as of right now. It's just a game that I was absorbed for several hours. I think I clocked in about 40 something hours. It definitely has content there. It's not microtransaction infested like most games are, but then again, that can change in a few months when they start updating the game. I can't wait for the DLC to come out. It's just a fantastic game. If you like Assassin's Creed, if you like Breath of the Wild, I can't stress enough you should give this game a try. Especially, these games. This is kind of like Ubisoft's new IP. They don't really do a lot of those, and I would like to see this be somewhat successful for them to keep trying new things versus rehashing another Far Cry or another Rainbow Six or something like that. For number 3 would be Yakuza 7, which is also called Yakuza Like a Dragon. This is hands down one of my favorite games that I've played in the last few months. I love the Yakuza franchise, and Yakuza 7 changed the formula quite a bit, where I went back to a traditional JRPG turn-based formula, which a lot of people I know weren't too excited about, but I think they've done a fantastic job at it. It was quite openly inspired by Dragon Quest, which I have never really played, but with the references there.
The character makes references to it all the time about how he loved video games and Dragon Quest, and he imagines himself kind of like in a Dragon Quest like game.
The story is typical Yakuza, which I think is fantastic. Everything, the humor is there, the plot twists are there. This is another fantastic Yakuza game. If you are turned off by the whole turn-based formula of the game, I think you should still give it a try, because story-wise, and if you're a fan of the Yakuza series, it's still a fantastic game. For my second would be Final Fantasy VII Remake. Now, I've never played Final Fantasy VII before. This is my first time playing it, and my mind was blown. This actually, when I played this one, I actually went back and played the original. That's how much fun I had had with this game. And the story I understand why a lot of people till this day will say Final Fantasy VII is their most favorite Final Fantasy game. For me, it's still Final Fantasy X, but Final Fantasy VII is a close second, and definitely my second favorite game of 2020, trailing behind Ghost of Tsushima. So this is my top game of 2020, and you know, Steve already said why Ghost of Tsushima is a great game, so I'm not going to repeat everything because I agree with what he said, but it's pretty much in my top spot right now because I think it's the only game I've kind of outright completed, like most, if not all, of the optional stuff, and that's what kind of sets Ghost of Tsushima apart from my other games. Because even though I've, you know, spent a lot of time in these open world games like Immortals, Yakuza 7, and FF7, I didn't spend as much time doing the optional stuff like I did with Ghost of Tsushima. You know, with Immortals I got really close, but I kind of just went straight through to the end of the story at some point. Not to say that Immortals is a bad game, it's just, you know, something about it I just, you know, maybe gotten tired of or something. But that didn't happen with Ghost of Tsushima. And what I'm trying to say is, you know, it was a game I was willingly giving time for, and that's something that for me makes a game good, is when I openly want to give my time to it. So that's why Ghost of Tsushima is my top game of the year for 2020. So there it is. That's our top 5 games of the year. Of course, these are our opinions. If you disagree, please leave a comment.
They're facts. Please do not dispute this.
Or, you know, you can dispute the facts.
Yeah, you can share your top games as well.
Yeah, please leave your top 5 games in the comments.
Maybe there's something we missed and we'll pick it up.
Yeah, and hopefully if you haven't tried any of these games, we inspire you to try at least some of them, because they're, especially like Paradise Killer.
It came out of nowhere, and honestly the fact that I found out about this game and I bought it the same day and it just made such a huge impact, definitely worth playing it.
And one final note before we end the video, I would like to say thank you to the developers of Animal Crossing. Now, I'm not a huge fan of Animal Crossing, but can't deny that it was a game that came out at a very crucial time.
Right.
Right at the beginning of this pandemic, this game came out and brought people together. It was kind of like I hate to say like a light in a dark time, but it really was. It really was. So shout out to that game. Again, not in my top 5 because I didn't play it, but you know, really, it was just a win for Nintendo.
I hope Sean watches this video and he's inspired to play it.
Yeah. Okay. All right, y'all. Take care.
Take it
and
easy.
Here's to a good 2021.
Yep.